Mr. Strong, what is it about Southeast Asia that keeps you coming back, and much of your works really connected with Southeast Asia?
I don't know. I had never thought about it when I was young. I never dreamed about it. I grew up in New York City. I was an American boy. And as you know, at 19, I went to Southeast Asia because there was a job opening as a teacher in Cholon in South Vietnam. And I applied, and they took me because I spoke only English. I didn't speak Vietnamese. I spoke French. And they took me, and I was able to teach for about a year kids who spoke English and history in English. And I was only 19, and it was fun. It was great. But more importantly, it opened my eyes to a world I had never seen, of poverty and tremendous fertility and beauty. The colors, I remember, were stunning. The war was starting, and I came back a second time as a soldier and served in Vietnam, which again changed my life. So Vietnam very much controlled the first years of my life, so to speak. The formative years were molded here, and it was always a strange culture to me. Buddhism, intriguing, and it seemed to have a lot of truth, but I didn't understand it. And I came back and back and back, and after the war, and I did a movie called Heaven and Earth with Lê Ly Hayslip, who was a Vietnamese woman who was a refugee from war, where she was on both sides, and she married an American, several Americans, and lived in two cultures, Heaven and Earth, between America and Vietnam. And I made the movie in 1993 and spent a lot of time in Thailand. I came back many times. I loved the people, loved the culture, loved Vietnam too. And Cambodia, I went to Cambodia, I went to Vietnam, to Thailand in 1965, when Bangkok was a jewel. It was like a little New York City in the middle of Southeast Asia. I think it's as close to God as you can get in some strange way. I feel much more connected to nature, to the air, to the colors. And I find the people lovely. Obviously there's wars and stuff, but people seem to have a good attitude about life and about setbacks and tragedy. And I think I've learned a lot from them, from their fortitude and stoicism.
That may be the Buddhist culture or Buddhist religion. I understand you have adopted.
That's correct, yes. I followed it, meditation, and as much practice. I'm more of a solitary realizer because I don't have access to a group in America that's convenient to my schedule. But Lê Ly brought me into the Vietnamese Buddhist church, but I've been able to return many times and go to Tibet, which is more oriented towards English speaking. Tibetans have been very powerful instructors, powerful teachers, whereas the Vietnamese are in Buddha and Thai schools, more of the southern tradition. It's harder for me to share the language, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. But I mean, a Buddhist is a Buddhist. So wherever I am, I'll go to a temple, or I'll visit Vietnamese monks. They're all over the southland of California.
You know, when you were in the Vietnam War, you chose to be in combat duty.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Why was that?
I was a different person. I was a young man. I went back as I say at 22 years old. And I wanted to, frankly, as I showed in Platoon, the movie I made, I wanted to experience life at its most basic level. I had problems of my own, of my family, a sense of a place. I was not fitting. I didn't fit in, and I felt at that time that the war would solve who I was and tell me what I was like, what I was as a person, and whether I should live. These were profound questions. I was I would say, alienated young man, depressed. Yeah. They answered my questions, and I came out of the war a better person. But it took me a long time to integrate back into the American society. Still having a hard time with Americans understanding. I think the shame of our generation, Americans have never really experienced war. They have never had it happen to them. And they have done a lot of the attacking and the aggressing. I feel like my generation, the Vietnamese, the boys who served in Vietnam, do have an obligation to try to teach what we learned about war.
Platoon Born on the 4th of July, Heaven and Earth, among your most memorable films. You know, they won the Oscars. But they're all about the war, especially the war in Vietnam. You had a lecture last night at the Foreign Correspondent Club of Thailand about filmmaking and peace. In your opinion, how can film, teach the people to achieve peace?
Film can creep up on people. It's subversive. It can get into your mind. You go in. You want to enjoy yourself. You're not going to be taught. You don't go to films to learn, to have a documentary experience. You go to films to be entertained. And I think inside that entertainment, it's exciting for me to try to teach, to communicate, to share values, civilization itself. My films sometimes are historical because I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember for people some of the things that happened that we forget so easily. Through memory, we can defeat the lie. And I'm saying the memory is very important to the continuation of our civilization, and peace depends on memory. If we don't remember, for example, World War I or World War II, we are stupid. And we are hurting ourselves greatly. We have to remember these things that happened in the past, especially the great tragedies that befell man. And that's part of why I do films.
How was the talk last night?
It was quite good, actually. I spoke for 20 minutes, and then it was a rough, a very sophisticated and experienced group of people. They had been older. Many of them had been foreign correspondents, so those questions were excellent. And it went on for another hour.
I mean, those are foreign correspondents.
Yeah.
They probably don't have a touch of a local Thai questions. To me, most of your films are not about fighting, killing, bloodletting war. But in the end, we come out many a times stunned by the fact that people should not keep on fighting. Alexander was a cultural, historical movie to me.
Yes.
It's not,
Well, it's a different story, a different time. He was at the beginning of the history, the recorded history. And I think Alexander had a beautiful dream, and I tried to show it. My favorite version of Alexander is not available in Thailand. It's 3 years later, I went back and I finished a DVD, which is a 2007 called Alexander Revisited.
Yeah.
Which is available on American internet or British internet, but not available here in Thailand. But that is the right version of the film. It's 3 hours and 45 minutes, and I put my heart into the film. That was my biggest, most ambitious film.
That we can buy through Amazon.com.
Through Amazon, yes.
Yeah.
And there's a new book out written by 18 scholars who've written essays about the movie. I did an afterword. It's coming from the University of Wisconsin, and it's called Alexander Cultural Studies, Oliver Stone's Alexander.
Because your movie is well researched. I mean, that's natural for you.
When you talk about
being
war,
advised by academic expert like Alexander.
Yes, no, it was. They took it very seriously because we did a lot of research, and it's quite a character, Alexander. But the modern perspective is hard sometimes to understand that man. People were comparing him to George Bush because he had invaded Iraq, but the comparison is a very extreme comparison. George Bush is hardly what Alexander was as a man, as a dreamer. In those days, the first conquerors, it had a different meaning to conquer. It meant to unify, and he was not once he conquered a country, he really did his best to intermarry and to bring the culture of that country into an integrated world civilization. This is crucial to understand, that Alexander stayed where he went. He never went home. He never took the wealth out of that country and went back. He stayed where, and he took the customs of the people, and he continued to try to build an empire, like almost an early form of, let's call it, a United Nations. He really believed in the oneness of man, and I say that because the concept of peace, I do believe, is built on the commonality that we all have. And I've traveled, like you have, many places in the world, most places, in fact, at my age. And I have to say, I've met so many different types of people, but at the end of the day, most people respond to kindness and goodness and want peace and happiness to some degree for their lives and for their children. I find that to be true everywhere I go. So that's what peace is. And we keep going to war over anger, over egoism, over all the reasons that we separate. But it's all in ourselves. Every war is in ourselves. I mean, it's easy to talk about let's not make war, but unless I look into myself every day and try to find the causes of my own aggression, I'm contributing in my own way to the aggression. I got angry yesterday over something minor, and the moment I got angry, I was upset with myself for being angry at this person who did not understand something. And I said, this is the cause of war. This is exactly what happens because we do this to ourselves every day. Yeah. I fight with my own children, like everyone else. I have 3 children. They break my balls, as they say. Sometimes they wrench my heart. I don't agree. And we fight. We fight, and we have to look inside ourselves and see our own aggression and look in the mirror.
Yeah, I guess modern wars comes in many shapes and forms. The fact that you have literally donated your time to come along with the Bridge project for the International Peace Foundation is something we should really highly appreciate.
Thank you.
What do you think you could contribute through Bridge?
I think talking to high school students, obviously the films, if they see them, are important to me, but I think there's good lessons in the films. My films have always been, in America, called controversial, but if you look at them from another point of view, they're also constructive. They're about love. They're about how a man or a woman should behave. They're about extreme stress, duress. People are faced with tremendous problems. But I'm an optimist, and most of my films, most of them have been positive and have good endings in the sense that people can overcome their adversity. I really am a believer that way.
What do you think of ASEAN as a regional organization of 10 Southeast Asian countries striving for peace and...
CETO? You mean
ASEAN.
Oh, ASEAN. Oh, yeah, it was the old...
Peace
I'm thinking the old CETO because when I was a young man, the Americans...
Thank you for recalling CETO,
the Americans wanted to make an alliance, a military alliance, because of their fear of communism. And as you know, it was a very bloody period. Yeah. And Sukarno was one of their enemies in Indonesia. Sukarno was one of the great neutralists in the world with Tito and Nasser in those, and of course he was targeted by the United States. So I was here in Vietnam when the Indonesian Revolution happened in '65. It was very bloody. Anyway, ASEAN is not known to me, but I know it's a group of association of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN evolved.
Yeah, from CETO.
From CETO.
Yeah. Thank God. Thailand is an amazing country that, it was such a bloody time between Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, and Burma, that for Thailand to manage to remain out of the bloodiest part of the war was a coup. The Thais are very smart people, and I think the king may have played a role, but I think the Americans really put a tremendous amount of pressure on Thailand, and I think Thailand, although it had to cooperate to some degree with the American force, was very smart the way they handled it.
The present king is said by Michael Todd to be his friend when he was directing Around the World in 80 Days.
Yes,
King
yes.
And
he came here?
Well, he came here and he changed the original story in the book.
Oh, really? I didn't, yeah.
Which, Phileas Fogg never traveled through Thailand.
Right.
Anyway.
It was one of the first films made.
Anyway, Todd made it in such a way that he came by Thailand and saw the beautiful royal bath procession and stuff like that. That's a result of...
I remember the movie. I was 10 years old.
Yeah. You've been making a lot of films here in Thailand. What is it about Thailand that is good for...
Well, Thailand happens to be a very good business infrastructure to make movies. Movies require a strong infrastructure, telephones, roads, transportation, communication, hopefully some English spoken. And I've been able to work here successfully on 2 films, and I planned a third called Pinkville, which was about the My Lai massacre, but we didn't get to make it.
This year?
No, we didn't make it. We came very close. We built the whole village in Chiang Mai. It's a wonderful experience. So I find the crews here great. The infrastructure is good. The English is good, and people get the need. The Thai people understand the need for efficiency and speed that the American system demands of filmmakers.
Is Wall Street, the sequel, just about ready?
I just finished in December, and I'm trying to prepare it for April release. It's going to be a rush, but we're working very hard on it. I love this story. It's more than a sequel. It's a story about now. It's a story of 2008. The world has changed so much since 1987 financially.
Actually, you know, I am very much looking forward to your television documentary called
Yes.
Oliver Stone's Secret History of America.
Yes.
Is it possible when it's done that local television here in Thailand could, you know, get the right to broadcast?
It's always tough in Thailand to get distribution. I mean, W, my last film, which is about George Bush Jr., which I think is a really special film, was not released in Thailand
I see.
because of distribution issues.
Because of the
I don't know.
contract negotiation?
Well, I don't think Bush was popular with the Thais. I can understand why, but the film, to me, is more important than the man. I mean, it outlasts the man. I mean, the film is classical. So I hope one day you get to see it, but I hope Secret History is coming here. I know we have foreign salesmen in England, so perhaps it will. But it's really a life effort. I mean, this is my third year of working on it. It's 10 hours. And it deals with the 20th century in America and why America became a national security state, which affects the future.
I think if it's available, especially me,
Well,
I'm looking
yes.
for the local cable channel, we can buy it.
No, I would love to everyone in the
We
world
can
to
buy
see
it.
it. You know, I'm not,
Otherwise, it's going to be on like History Channel or some other things like
well,
that.
we don't know. I mean, right now in America, it's sold to Showtime, and Fremantle has it abroad. Fremantle is a distribution company out of England.
Because locally,
Fremantle.
that's the
Yes.
Australian.
Is it Australian?
distribution,
Okay.
yeah. But locally, we have True Vision, the cable company, which has like over 100 channels.
Well, let's stay in
including
touch on
History
it.
Channel, Discovery, and National Geographic.
Of course, I would love it to be shown in
But
Thailand.
it could be exclusively distributed through True Vision,
True Vision.
with whom I'm working also.
Okay.
I see.
Well, why don't you write it? Could you write to Fremantle? Do you know?
I used to buy National Geographic from Fremantle many years ago when it was not a channel, it was just like an hour special. Yeah, I can write to them.
It'd be helpful
Yeah.
to express your interest and then say you met with me.
What do you think of Vietnam today?
I've been back several times. It's I couldn't shoot there because of the infrastructure. It's not suitable yet. They haven't been able to solve the issues, the micro issues of economics that we need to make a movie. I find it fascinating culture. I find the growth, the regeneration of the people from that horrible war. So many people were killed. And to see that new generation, it's it's amazing. The way the Vietnamese don't look back, you know, they're very strong people, amazing. I would call them warriors, you know, really warriors, and they survived so much damage. I mean, the country's vegetation is incredible. There's so many opportunities there. I know the government's got issues and dissidents and all this, but it has a Chinese culture, and I think a Chinese-Vietnamese culture, and I think that the concept of an authoritarian government is necessary for them to unify so many different tribes, dialects. It's a complicated business. I think Americans cannot apply their view of the world of how to run a government to Southeast Asia or to China.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stone. You're
Thank
welcome back here as many times as you want here in Thailand.
Thank you so much. Some facts.
สมเกียรติ
Some-
สมเกียรติ May I have the final photograph with you?
Sure. Sure.
ขอสักครู่ You want me out? That's from the Bangkok Post.
Yeah, well, he's always back. This guy. He's been around all day.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please write to Fremantle, all right?
Yeah, I'll write.
Oh, you gave me
I
one.
can give you the time. Yeah.
Thank you. Very-
ปากกาป่ะเฮ้ยปากกาไหมตอง Can I